Hello and welcome back to the 186th. To start 2021 off in style, we've got something a bit special for you all. This week is the first episode of The Bad Batch, a new series where we take some of the world's best X-Wing players, give them bad lists, and see how they do. Lloyd and I have scoured the results of recent major tournaments and selected lists that won one or fewer games but had something interesting about them. Each episode, our players will select a list in secret before facing off for our education and entertainment. This week, we are very pleased to be joined by two players whose achievements are too numerous for us to even consider listing them here. Faan Langelaan and Bartosz Wójcicki. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hi, Paul.
Faan, why don't we start with you? Can you talk us through your list and tell us what your initial impressions of it were?
Okay, yeah, sure. So this battle I'm flying a scum list consisting of Han Solo with Trickshot, Uncouplet, Kira and the title, Old Terror with Fearless, Torani Kuda with the reroll droid, and the Mining Guild Surveyor with the squad leader. It was not a list that was actually too bad. The individual pieces themselves, they could be flown in some lists, and I don't think they're too bad, actually, but there are of course some problems like Han Solo. You don't see him truly often in competitive play because it's a bit of a one-trick pony. As long as you get the obstructed shots, he will generate value, but otherwise not too handy to use, I would say.
And Bartosz, over to you. Your list is probably a bit more complicated. It's got a few more tricks up its sleeve. Again, go through it for us and maybe explain a few of those options that you've got.
Right, so we got two heavies. We got Han and Rey, and we got long-range coordinated. I had same feelings like Faan that the list itself it is a one-trick pony in a way. And I have a feeling that it has been built for okay, let's try this crazy reason to coordinate those two ships from the other end of the board. They're not Rebel Falcons who have more sustained fire, better dials, etc., etc., and I find them better at long combat. So right here, you basically have Nodin, who, thanks to C-3PO, has all the actions in the world, which he doesn't really need. Then we have PZ4CO on Rey, who I have, basically the only purpose of that crew member is to give Rey calculate so that Nodin can coordinate her. And then we have GA97, it's the resistance droid. But as you'll see right now when we're setting up, I'm not going to use it to put Rey or Nodin off the board because it's my experience with GA97 is that basically when the second ship comes from whatever he wants to, it's too late. Basically, because the world is on fire. I've tried like Rey and Poe or Han and Poe or anything like that, but when the second ship came off the side of the board, basically this Falcon was dead. And I thought that it'll make the same sense here. So it's basically spending points to get calculate on your bar.
Yeah, and just to spell that out for viewers who may be sort of less familiar with this, it's all centered around C-3PO. So C-3PO has a coordinate ability, and as Bartosz was alluding to, you are allowed to coordinate beyond the normal range limit, in fact, anywhere on the board, to other ships that have the calculate action. The Falcons don't naturally have the calculate action, but both PZ4CO and GA97 give the ships that action. Yeah, and that's been my experience with GA97 as well, is I think it's incredibly difficult to use effectively, and more often than not, you just give your opponent 2 or 3 turns facing half of your list before the rest of it arrives a little bit too late to the party.
I just think that the only list that I've seen that succeeded with that droid is the one that made top 8 at Worlds, where you had Finn coming off one of the edges, but then you had 4 ships on the board, and that was the 5th one coming. So that's slightly different.
Yeah, it was like one of those cards that before it was released, everyone was excited to see how it would work and what would be good with it. And I think, with the exception of that Worlds list, we've not really found great place for it yet.
And Bartosz, from your point of view, we see Rey turning away here from the bulk of Faan's list. Rey normally a jousting piece. In this, is that the way to use her, or are you better off sort of flanking with both ships?
I mean, Rey is a jousting ship, but usually Rey has Finn on board, which is a major missing point here. I think I missed Finn and Rose because I'm used to flying Finn, Rose, Rey if I'm flying her. And also I'm facing 4 ships, right? each one of them can hurt me badly. Resistance falcons have 2 shields less, and they melt pretty quickly. I know I need to joust with Ray, but my plan was to get as much distance as possible and then to engage not more than 2, maybe 3 ships. I've tried to do as much separation from Terok as possible. And I know that Torani is not the most. I have to wait for them to commit between the rocks and then fight on more of my terms, which was a trick because then you have Han Solo, who is the damage dealer in this list. So I had to be very, very cautious with the engage. At least that was my idea.
And so are either of you going into this engagement with a specific ship you're targeting?
I knew that for me, the winning condition is killing Han Solo.
For sure. And Faan, with your list, obviously most of it moving before, are you a bit more reactive, or do you have a similar target one?
Well, usually every game I play versus a list with Ray in it, whether it's a competitive game or any game, Ray is always first target. Maybe in this list that it's less clear because there's no Finn, there's no Rose, but I just went with my usual strategy of always killing Ray first when playing against Ray.
Yeah, it's usually a good plan for sure.
And so we see exactly that here. Opening engagement, nice positioning from Faan, gets that obstructed shot from Han Solo, and unlike any Han Solo I think I've ever seen, opens up with 4 hits out of hand. And Ray there with the 2 evades, not getting the bonus dice from Restruction thanks to that Kira lock, but does, as I say, roll the 2 evades and takes 2 damage from that opening shot. Han Solo here firing back into the scum Han Solo. A bit of hand-on-hand violence. With the reroll from the target lock and with a focus token, getting those 2 actions because of the coordinate, gets hit crit. So good early attack dice here and good defense dice again. 2 shields into Han. And then Bartosz, you've got a choice of targets here. What do you go for and why?
Well, I knew I have to go into Han, but then him getting all those, bonuses and him not spending that focus, that was a big thing. So I was debating who to shoot actually, and I think I went for Torani.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to strip that focus token because there was not big of a chance of me getting any hits into Han because he had 4 dice with focus. And then looking at all that, I knew that Torani will be another massive damage dealer in this game. So I need to, strip token, do some damage.
Cool. And we can see the 2 hits in the focus here have a force and the focus to spend. But obviously, looking at 3 more shots coming in onto an already damaged Ray, you decide to keep it at 2 and chip that 1 damage through. I think Faan there is deciding not to spend focus, happy to take 1 on Torani to keep that mod for attack. And then we have Faan ships coming back in. Old Terok here, I think probably individually the best piece on the board. And as Faan said in the opening, I think on the face of it, like his list better, and Old Terok's a large part of that, but not really helping to start off with 1 hit into 1 evade.
Yeah, but even though I had the feeling like Ray has taken too much of a beating in early engage, considering her 2 focus and 2 force tokens. And also the last part of this combat just made me cry.
We're about to see that. We've got a good roll there from Torani, gets the 3 hits again into 2 evades from Ray. But then this final shot, and this is presumably what you're talking about, hit crit. Oh, and not a good roll. So taking the crit, and that is a fuel leak. So end of firing for the first turn. And Lloyd, how do you think this is going? Certainly, when I was watching it as it happened, I was very worried about Ray in this position.
Yeah, I think as Bartosz said, right, you want to limit the shots coming into Ray. She's not quite the heavy hitter we usually see with her crew and gunner combos. This is the worst question for me because, as you know, I'm an awful Ray pilot. So, of all the ships in the game, this is the one I'm probably least capable of giving any sort of sensible feedback on. But I would hope there's something you can do with Nodin and coordinating to try and solve this problem, because it looks like Faan's choices of just slow rolling Tirani, banking the Mining Guild in, and banking Terok in is going to give you 3 more shots, or best case scenario, a bump and 2 more shots into an already bleeding Ray. So I'll be interested to see what Bartosz's plan is here.
Yeah, so maybe we'll start with Faan. From your point of view, I presume relatively happy with the opening trade of fire. What are you kind of expecting from the next moves, and what's your goal for this turn?
Yeah, well, so I was quite happy to put some significant damage on Ray in the first opening engagement, and now I have 4 ships facing Ray, and I just really want to try to get as many shots in on Ray as possible, because just on the face of it, it looks like a position where it's very difficult for Ray, indeed, as Lloyd said, to really get away. You could get 3 shots in here, or maybe 2 shots and a bump, stuff like that, indeed, just by slowly moving your ships towards Ray. And I think that's exactly what I'm going to do here. And also Han Solo looks also to be in quite good position, because he can now get on the other side of the rock and hopefully get another obstructed shot.
Planning for this turn, it really took me a while, as you can see in game. And it didn't really click at first what I can do, because I was really worried about Ray. And Faan's List advantage over mine is also, again, in Han and Lando's Millennium Falcon, where you get extra dice for shooting stressed targets. And Ray with title likes to be stressed. So I was debating what to do, and Han for me was really, to be honest, I was expecting, because the middle rock was target locked, so I expected Han to go 3 hard right or 2 hard right, whatever, because he ignores that rock, and to get obstructed shot at Ray, and there's not much really I can do. So Han, I just wanted to be in the picture, so I think I dialed 1 straight to keep arc as much as possible and have that turning option left. But then it clicked for Nodin, as you'll see in a second, that she can do one thing with Ray. And I was hoping for the TIE fighter not to do a barrel roll, because that would mean that Tirani will bump. And then I'm playing Anakin, the new ETA 2, and it kind of resembled me that I can block lower pilot skills with higher pilot skills by system phase pre-moves, and I kind of did similar thing here, as you'll see. Yeah, so Nodin is doing the move where she can coordinate whoever she wants, and then there's the pre-boost from Ray, which can bump both Terok and Tirani. And if not, I've dialed, as you'll see, a maneuver that I was debating about sloop, but that was too risky to land on the rock. And I think I caught Faan off guard, because like he said, it's something that I can do, the coordination tricks, but I do not have to. So you have to plan for like 12 situations. And also this moves blocks reposition for Terok. So I wanted to be as clean from shots as possible, which kind of worked.
Yeah, and so we see here that pre-move boost, which I had no idea was a possibility. And then, as if that wasn't impressive enough, the prediction and the judgment on the 3 hard, which currently leaves Ray, although stressed from that boost, in no arcs. Faan, what were you thinking at this point?
Well, at this point, I was really thinking this was a great move by Bartosz, but I was also hitting myself for the head, because on the other hand, I just didn't think of it. But at the moment when you realize that these plans are possible, it was not an impossible plan to stop, put it that way, because the TIE fighter could have, or should have rather, barrel rolled or do a different move to prevent these kind of shenanigans. So I was a bit unhappy that I didn't plan for that.
And I think actually that's maybe an even more insightful point than the move itself. As I've said, I think honestly that's, for me, one of the best moves I've seen on an X-Wing table since starting this channel. But probably the more important thing for players looking to get better is not Bartosz's move, but Faan's reaction. Not to throw his hands up, not to blame the game for this ridiculous trick, but to be annoyed at himself and think, next time I am going to plan for that. Next time I'll remember, and next time that won't happen to me. I think that is how you get better.
on the other hand, one thing that I do want to mention, of course, it's still a very, very good move by Bartosz, even if it theoretically could have been stopped, and still probably 100% the best move he could have done, I think, because Ray was in quite of a bad position. So you have to take some risk also, or come up with something creative to get out of such situations.
Absolutely. So Ray ending up in the 1 arc there. Han takes the 3 die shot because of the stress, puts a little bit more damage into Ray, who's now on 6 health with that fuel leak from last turn. Nice shot here from Resistance Han into Scum Han, but Scum Han gets that extra defense dice from the rock and takes 2. Most of Faan's list sitting looking at nothing, so we're onto the Ray shot here. Ray continuing to go into Tirani, best shot available with that rear arc, and does an extra 3 damage. So from a position where I was sitting thinking, wow, this might be over quick if Ray goes down this turn, Ray out of trouble and doing a helpful extra lump of damage to Tirani. So far now aware of the tricks, and that's not going to happen to you again. Where do you go from here?
Well, now at this point, most of my ships were facing not the right way, but I still wanted to kill Ray first because he was also heavily damaged. So I tried to put as many arcs as possible on Ray, while at the same time making sure that my Han Solo wouldn't be in too much fire because he was damaged also.
Yeah, and with Han, you've kind of got options here, right? You can either turn towards Nodin and Resistance Han, or maybe loop back towards your own list. And of those two, I think I prefer coming back towards your list.
Yeah, that's also the option that I choose to do, and I actually thought quite a bit about this because positionally, maybe going left could be a bit better because you stay more active, or you could even probably look at some obstruction for that rock that Resistance Han just passed. If you turn, for example, to the left here, but on the other hand, I thought it was safer to move to the right actually and back to my own ships. Also to stay closer to the rock that I target lock.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're not wasting those actions relocking different rocks.
Yeah.
And Bartosz, from your point of view, Han, I think is all day turning left. That's there's no downside to that I can see, no rather real option. But Ray and Nodin do have choices. With Nodin here, he said at the start there's kind of a coordination machine. Is she so valuable in that role that you need to skirt along the board edge and try and not get involved, or can you bring the gun to bear at this point?
I think that was my mistake because I really had no idea what to do with Nodin at first because also I didn't want to bring too much attention to her. But then thinking right now, I think I might have misplaced her at the beginning. But especially with her moves, she has to do blue maneuver every turn. And the problem is the automated target priority. This is on one piece I really would remove because that's just that limits her options for shooting, and she has limited shooting options anyway because she can. I would say that ion cannon is the only valuable shot coming from Nodin in this setup. I will be starting to bring her back to combat right now. But the problem is that transport style is not really the best one in the world. And again, there's something that works in favor of fun, that Nodin is being stressed every turn. So that's a problem. But my thinking right now was that I can lose Ray, but I need to burn Han. And then my Han can solo his 3 ships, especially considering how damaged Tirani already is.
That makes sense. We see the first move from Faan here. The Minor Guild taking advantage of its ship ability, flying over that rock, still able to take actions, doesn't have to roll for the damage. That's interesting. Maybe a good opportunity to start to talk about sort of individual elements of the list. That's my feeling as well. I think automated target priority is a card that I am yet to be convinced by at all. I think that it's so important on almost any ship to be able to choose the target. And here, especially with the ion cannon, against large base ships, if you start to put ion tokens on the Scum Falcon, you need to be able to follow up and continue with that. There's no good putting 2 ion tokens on and then having to shoot the TIE fighter the next turn. So yeah, I think I agree with you. That feels like a really limiting piece. And even though we're talking about this as a janky list, it's a list with some tricks that we've seen, and certainly a list that you're getting value out of so far, Bartosz. I think if you want to run a list like this, you still want to be optimizing it, and that was maybe a piece that didn't need to be there. Nice hard turn there from Tirani, fitting nicely through the rocks. Talking of making the most out of the bits of the lists that we've got, the Mining Guild Surveyor has Squad Leader on it, allowing it to coordinate. A nice use of that to get a focus token to the bigger gun of Tirani, even though he was doing the red maneuver. Ray with the Sloop turns that front arc back around. A little bit light on force, still only the one left, but definitely a good position to get sort of more shots in. And we see Old Terok and Han coming round. And a much more even-looking board state than a couple of turns ago.
Just to point out here, I made quite a big mistake here this turn, because I dialed in a 3 hard with Han to the right, and I bumped my own Mining Guild TIE Fighter. So I was actually very unhappy with the position that Han ended up, because he could have been a lot safer. Because as you said, Bartosz rightly picked out that destroying Han quickly could be a major advantage for him. So Han not getting his action here and getting shot by all ships was really bad for me. And I really should have planned better this move of this Mining Guild TIE Fighter, because to pick some move that would allow Han not to bump, which would have been possible.
Yeah, and without wanting to be too critical, and for not much advantage in terms of the Mining Guild, it could have been in a different place without you losing too much from the turn.
Yeah.
Han getting the 2 hits with no mods, so putting 1 damage to onto Nodin, and taking hit crit back from Resistance Han.
Yeah, so this is where I thought that maybe game is turning in my favor and a bit. I was quite happy with that turn at first. Then Scum started to shoot at me, which wasn't fun. It's never fun.
Old Terok here starting off, spending the focus for 3 hits. Oi! And blanks from Ray. Has the 1 force, can convert to an evade. Goes ahead and does so, but takes another 2 damage.
And with Faan, your Scum Han, you've got Unkar Plucked Crew. So you do have the option of having bumped to take damage to take an action. Was that something you thought about? Is it worth that cost to boost to get out of the range of these ships? Or was that something that, from where you were, that the additional stress as well is maybe too much of a cost?
Oh, I admit that I totally didn't think about that. I never used that card, so I didn't think about it.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, the number of times I've put it into a list and then taken it out again, but I'm determined to find a use for it at some point. I think this might have been the one time.
Well, probably it's about a wash, because you will get it to get a focus token. Oh wait, I could have boosted maybe. I could have boosted to the left.
The boost left, so you would have taken a damage and a stress
for no shots coming in. Ooh, that could have been a nice option.
Yeah.
Actually. That could have been a nice option.
Yeah, I totally forgot about Unkar.
Yeah, but I mean, I should just have planned better and not do the silly bump there.
I think maybe I like Unkar because I tend to bump myself more than you do.
So we had Ray putting some more damage in. Scum Hand getting a Panicked Pilot to add to the damage engine that Resistance Hand gave him. But another 3 hits coming in here from Tirani. Really nice single-modded attack dice there from Faan. And Ray on 1 health. So lives to fight another day, but not by much. Final shots of the turn coming in here. TIE Fighter doesn't do any damage to Nodin, and we've got Nodin's first shot of the game, that ion cannon. Gets a choice of targets, because they're both at range 3, shoots at Han, and manages to put through a further damage and a single ion, which obviously on a large base is not going to do anything yet.
Yeah, but I still thought that if I'll ion him somehow next turn, he'll be... he's on 3 HP right now, so...
Yeah, I think that's right. Even the single damage at this point is useful. Makes it more likely that Han dies sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the two blank outs on Ray. I think that was massive because there's no way running away from Han right now.
Yeah, and Han being at I6, if he was to do that single damage, Ray isn't going to get a further shot. Meanwhile, though, your Han is in a nice place, Bartosz. He's coming round. Tirani damaged from that initial engagement, and Scum Han low on health. You're not in a great position, but I don't think it's lost yet.
No. I still felt that with those 3 HP, having initiative advantage, and also, well, Han being in the 6. So, I mean, Faan's Han is in trouble. He has 2 stress. He cannot hard turn right now. So I was quite happy with last turn, except those 2 blank outs. But I felt like I still can make it right now, and I had plans right here how to get out. As you'll see, I'll use Nodin again in a cheeky way in a second. But like the more we went into the game, the more I thought that it's a quite nice combo by Nodin. Although I think this is more of a casual, fun game night list rather than a tournament one.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting thing to pick up on, and Faan, I'd be interested to hear what you think about this as well. So we've seen it already. By the sounds of things, we're about to see it again. Coordinating is powerful, and coordinating from the other side of the board is hugely so. We've got a Nodin build that is coordinating an action and ending up with 1, if not 2 modifications itself because of the combination of Nodin's ability, C-3PO, and the crew that are on the 2 Falcons. That does sound good. It does sound fun. Why isn't that top tier?
Well, theoretically it sounds very fun, but then you look at the points, and Nodin is 53 points, which is actually quite a lot. And there's a lot of stuff on Nodin, but it's hard to see how it all translates into real value for winning the game, I would say. And these other ships, Han and Ray, they are okay, but they cannot win the game just if they get 1 extra coordinate here and there.
Yeah, so I think sort of in general, for all of the tricks of Nodin, you end up with a double modded, poorly maneuverable ion cannon and 2 big expensive ships that are between them having maybe 1.5 modded shots. They're not getting the double mods. And as Bartosz, you said at the start of the game, these Resistance Falcons are just not as good as the Rebel ones. And I think also true of the Scum Falcon.
I mean, let's not even go close to Rebel Han Solo.
Yeah, better style, better actions, better health, better ability. Across the board, right?
I mean, let's stop for a second and imagine I would have Jack Mooney's Han Solo.
Yeah, at this stage, with a piece that powerful, the amount that the rest of the list has to do for you is that much less. You were saying here that if you can burn down Scum Han, then your Han can solo the rest of the list, and it absolutely can. But it's not a done deal. It's not a given in the way that if you were left against Terok, Tirani, and the Mining Guild with Rebel Han, you'd be feeling very comfortable and really believe that you can take it out.
Yeah, and it's not about the cost of a ship; it's about the value.
Exactly.
So, like Nodin is 53 points, and that 53 points feels expensive. But 130 point Han, if it can solo list, is a bargain.
I mean, 3 Nodin Chavdris won't do what Han can.
Absolutely, yeah.
And like Faan said, Nodin is just oh look, he has Nodin Chavdri. Oh, this list works miracles. It's I would say this is a very same situation as G897. I think that if you'd read this list at first, you'd think, okay, so Ray goes into reserves, Han sets up at the other end of the table because you have bid or whatever, and then Nodin just plays tricks, haha. But then if you do it, you'd lose in 2 turns because you'd lose. Someone would just jump on Nodin and just kill those 53 points for free.
Yeah, and I think that that's true of a lot of lists that you kind of make on the train, right? It's a list that you've sat with your squad builder going to work, you're flicking through the lesser used upgrades, and you come up with a nice idea, with a nice trick, and I think it's worth trying them out. I think that this is a really creative list. There's a lot to like about it, and it's definitely something that's worth putting on the table because if you keep making lists like this, and if you keep putting them on the table, you might find the next Dengaroo, you might find the next incredible list. But you do need to put them on the table, because that's when you really find out. That's when you really kind of get that confirmation that a 53-point Nodin is nice, but probably a little bit too much for what it gives to the list. And we see yet again that pre-move boost coming in from the coordinated ray. Bartosz, you were saying sort of hoping for some blocks here.
I knew that Tarani will have to go towards Han or whatever, and also Tarok will probably go into me. So I thought, okay, so maybe I'll just try the same trick. All right, let's see how it'll work. Because my only chance was that Faan will run away with Han at that point.
So we do indeed see that, with Tarani flying past and old Tarok going in for the bump there. Another 3 hard nicely takes Ray over the top. But unfortunately for you, Faan may be more ready for it this turn. 1 banks Han round, and Han is going to have a shot. No mods, but because of that boost and the 3 hard, Ray is going to be stressed here. So it's going to be 3 dice into 1, and 1 damage is all that's needed.
Yeah, that was. I didn't hope for much.
And we see, even with the dice off the board there, Han's got those 2 hits. That's enough. And Ray goes down before getting a shot, and that would have been a range 1 rear arc shot into a tokenless old Tarok, who would not have had the ability. So that's a big moment and real swing in the game. Starting to look a little bit tricky for you here, but you've still got a good amount of health on Han. Good roll there.
I still thought I can try to do it into Tarani by spending that focus. I knew that I'm going to get extra damage from her ability, but I thought that crit is just too much not to spend that focus. Especially, every damage counts, and there are 2 ships I need to remove from the board.
And so Tarok here, 1 hit, that bump doing work, no damage there. But here we've got the bullseye shot from Tarani. A poor roll initially, but using the droid there for a reroll, spending the focus for 2. Han taking the 2, and as you say, Bartosz, also taking the bonus damage from Tarani's ability with no token to spend there. So did a decent amount more damage to Tarani. Tarani on 3, but Han taking resistance. Han taking much more damage than you would like here. We've got a range 1 shot from the TIE Fighter into Nodin.
Yeah, this is where Faan is aware of my target log on him.
Yeah.
And even though I would love to shoot Han there, but I knew that I have to.
So the automated target priority kicking in there. No choice about the shot. Do have the range 1. 3 hits. Oh, and 3 evades. And that would have been a nice bonus. An ionized TIE Fighter there would really have helped you out.
Yeah, because I could just ignore him next turn.
Yeah.
And right now I had in my mind that this TIE Fighter not getting iron, not getting damage, means that he can either block me, or he can coordinate, or he can do 20 other things. What I thought is Faan is thinking right now, I need to block Nodin to stop coordination on Han. And knowing Nodin's amazing dial, it won't be that hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Just has a 1-2 forward and a 1 bank to clear.
I thought that TIE Fighter will do 1 hard left right now, and it blocks all my blue moves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Faan, from your point of view, that sounds like a good move. Is that what you're thinking? And what's the rest of the list, do you think?
Yeah, so here there's of course a bit of a decision point. It would seem normal with Tarani and Tirov to try to get some more shots in at hand, but especially positions like this, these large base boost Falcons can easily escape sometimes if they just pick the right maneuver. I mean, if I just go forward, then maybe a 3 bank could clear my ships, or a 3 forward coupled with a boost. So, and at most you're only getting 1 shot in. because there will be one bump, so it's not even that great of a trade. So actually what I decided to do here was just to turn in Old Terror and Torani both at Nodin, because I know where she will end up being. So it's 100% shots turning into Nodin, while it's a bit more risky if in this position to pursue Hen.
Absolutely. Obviously, probably not going to kill Nodin in one round, but if you put some serious damage into Nodin and kill it maybe the turn or two after, then that gives you even more points, and then Bartosz has to chase you with Han, and Han becomes more predictable.
Yeah, also the thing here, I'm already ahead in points, so taking even more easy points puts more pressure on Bartosz.
Yeah, and I thought that was another really nice sort of decision point in the game. Something we talk about on the channel. You're kind of always aware of the game state, and it would be the easiest thing in the world here to look at Han's shields down, 8 health left, close by to your 2 biggest guns, and try and sort of finish the game here and now. But exactly as you say, Han's unpredictable. You're up in the game. The conservative moves are the sensible ones. What you don't want to do is go all out for Han. Bartosz evades it and suddenly gets himself back in the game. Turning away here, putting a lump of damage into Nodin definitely feels like a good choice. Bartosz, for you at this point, is there a kind of route to victory given the board state and given the health of your ships?
So Han needs to take down Torani and Han. That's the road to victory for me. And pretty much that was in my head. And it was a very tough decision point because there were dozen scenarios. I mean, what Faan could have done was block me with Torani and then put a volley from Terok into me, for instance. But if he's right, if he would missed, then he would be in trouble. So I was debating for a long time to dial 2 straight on Nodin, because I thought that maybe Faan will do 1 hard and then a barrel roll to block that. So I dialed 1 straight. Which he called perfectly, and I think I dialed 3 straight with Han. And I forgot how much time was left, but there wasn't much time for me. And yeah, his Han is running away, so there's no way I'm doing any damage to him this turn, I think. So I think I had to focus on Torani this turn.
Yeah, and so we saw there the 1 hard, as you say, getting the bump, also getting the coordinate off to give Torani a focus before another red 1 hard. Old Tarot coming in there, also taking focus. And Faan's got himself into a lovely position with 2 high-quality shots on bumped, defenseless 1 agility ship.
That block on Nodin was huge because, for instance, that would be double modded shot from my hand into Torani.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and the possibility of another iron cannon shot into Faan's hand. So is it range 3 here? That's more like the scum hand solos that I've seen. Blanks there. And we're on to resistance hand firing into the back of Torani. I wondered when I was watching it, Torani is definitely the sensible choice. He's going to take damage, and indeed we can see him taking 1 damage here, rolling the evade. A little bit unlucky to only do the 1. I wondered with the game state whether you needed to shoot Tarok there. And my thought process, which may well be wrong, but was that I don't think that you can deal with Tarok in the end game, whereas you can deal with Torani, with Scumhan, and with the TIE Fighter. And I wondered whether you need to swing for the hill and just hope to do a lot of damage to Tarok at range 1. Was that in your head, or is that just sort of too high risk, high reward play?
That was high risk, high reward, because I could have in the kill Torani with a lucky shot.
Yeah.
And then just save that damage on.
Yeah, and I'm far from saying that it is hard for me to deal with Terok in late game, because he is a Fang, and his ability works only in my front arc, which I won't be using very often. Also, Concordia works in my front arc as well, so he's just a Fang for me, a lower any Fang, so I can just arc dodge him.
Fair point. So we see, unfortunately, the initiative kill onto Torani didn't take place. Nodin has taken an absolute shed load of damage, and to make matters worse, doesn't even put any more damage into Scum Han. And now this is looking tricky. It looks like it's Resistance Han versus the world. But as you've said, Bartosz, the plan remains the same. Kill Tirani, kill Scum Han, and then you're very close to being up on points, and it's getting towards the end of the game.
Yeah, but with Nodin blanking out twice and taking everything that was shot at her, that was even trickier. And and there's that pesky little TIE fighter whose actually squad leader ability was really paying off in this game, especially with Tirani one hearts. That was massive. It paid off twice, and it made a massive difference.
Yeah, Faan, that's a really interesting point, and it was something I was impressed by watching the game. You've come to a new list. You've got a slightly weird piece, an I2 coordinating TIE fighter, but you've consistently made use of it. You seem to me to have really quickly identified that the value of this ship is not in rolling around taking 2 dice pot shots at things. It's in getting those double mods or opening up the dial for your bigger guns. In general, when you're sort of starting to play with a new list, what's your process? How do you kind of make sure that you pick up on these things and kind of go through and work out what everything's role is?
Well, it's actually funny because I think I've made a couple of lists myself where I've included exactly this piece, this Mining Guild Surveyor with Squad Leader, because I think it's actually for 29 points, it's quite a good piece. Because Squad Leader just can be such a powerful tool to have in your squad. But I think most likely, when looking at a new list, is what makes it work and what are the strong pieces, what are the lesser pieces. And I think here, having a big gun such as Tirani, always being able to shoot double modified can be great help with this TIE fighter to give double modification.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a cheaper coordinator, and I can't off the top of my head, right? It feels like incredibly good value, whereas we were talking about Nodin, and obviously Nodin's ability is rangeless, but it's almost twice the cost of this TIE fighter.
Yeah, absolutely. And barring maybe that initial kind of great escape from Rey in turn 2, the value of these focuses from the TIE fighter has far outweighed that of the coordinates from Nodin. So Nodin with the loose stabilizer there, having to go straight. A nice sort of get out of the way move, really, with the TIE fighter. Slightly gets in the way of Tirani, but no real harm done. And old Terok slotting nicely into position there.
I mean, considering the board state right now and how it happened, shooting Terok might have been a better idea, because now I would have a double modded shot again into him. So considering that I would put any damage into him, that might be dead Terok, and then it's better for me because I have 1 agility ship and 1 agility ship versus, so I killed Tirani here.
Yeah, and we saw a slight misplay there with the coordinate to Tirani when he was stressed, but in the end, having that focus didn't matter, so no harm done. Old Terok shot here, 2 hits, doesn't even have to spend the focus, and that is a dead Nodin. And to finish the round off, a bonus shot from the TIE fighter. Oh, hit crit.
Yeah, insult to injury.
Oh, and for the second time in the game, that TIE fighter puts a crit into a falcon.
Yes, yeah. And that was that was, like I said, insult to injury. And my experience with pot shots like that, it always ends up this way. Always.
It's when you're looking at the turn thinking, okay, that hasn't too badly, I can live with that. And it's that final turn. And we see their hand taking a disable power regulator.
And this is a problem, considering that I'm facing Terok right now. This is a problem because it becomes a time bomb.
Yeah, 7 health and 1 agility, 1 big Terok shot, and you are too far behind. And in 3 turns' time, Terok is going to know exactly where you're going to end up.
Yeah, so you need to account for that turn where you need to be, not facing a board edge essentially, and then you need to also the turn following where you're definitely not going to be rotating an arc.
it puts some pressure off Faan's back because in 3 turns he can just pincer one maneuver. He can do one maneuvers. So in this turn, I kind of knew where Terok will be, so I was trying to avoid as many arcs as possible. Unfortunately, this became a obstructed shot, so naked one. This is another upgrade I missed on Han, which is trick shot.
Yeah, so we get the range 1 shot there, but just no hits with those unmodified dice. The 3 hard I thought was a really nice move. Again, still focused on the win condition. You need to not take shots at this point. You need to out-trade things and nicely arc dodging everything. In a nice position again for this turn coming up, but just not getting the sort of final benefit and not being able to squeeze any damage through there.
Yeah, and I'm starting to be short on time, so Faan doesn't have to stress about anything. He just needs to keep his hand away from me, and just at this point he could sit in a board edge, near to the board edge, and just to focus target lock one of the rocks and just go over it over and over again.
And so, Faan, given that in this position, do you tend to sort of play safe at this point, kind of keep your eye on the win condition and not take risks, or are you someone who kind of likes to play for killing as much stuff as possible, even if it's the more risky play?
Well, in these kinds of positions, there's always a bit of 2 types of decisions you can make. And on the one hand is indeed running away and preserving points that way. On the other hand, if you're ahead, it's also sometimes a mistake to really run away and have the opponent get the better of position and damage. So sometimes if you're ahead, you should just punch through and trade aggressively down every piece. Just like comparison, if you know about chess, if you're ahead, you also want to trade pieces, because then at the end, if you were ahead in the beginning of all these trades, you will be still ahead. Well, if you just run away and do only evasive actions, sometimes you allow your opponent the possibility to come back. So I'm more of a player that tends to try to finish the game if I'm significantly ahead, if it's possible, and reasonably to do so.
Yeah, if your opponent also has to be thinking about how they're not going to die, they can't just focus all of their efforts on how they're going to kill you.
But the only trap there is a tunnel vision. I mean, I've won 2 or 3 games where my opponents went into tunnel vision. Like I remember Milton Keynes 2 years ago, the system open, and my opponent basically had a mole swarm. Droids just came out and started chasing 2 or 3 A-Wings, and basically he was chasing me, and I was fine with that. I was just running away and putting pot shots range 3 or 2, and I won that game because he tunnel visioned. So it's really easy to game, because at one point you have that blood in your eyes, and like you want more blood for the blood god.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point, right? As much as I kind of have the same approach as Faan, usually like the ability to go and finish somebody off is always nice, but constant reassessing the situation and taking it into account, because situations can and do change.
That was really interesting to hear, and I think what that shows is that there's no one right answer, right? There's not the answer of always play safe or always go aggressive.
Exactly.
And you just need to keep it in mind. And here we see again, beautiful use of the coordinating TIE fighter. We've got a Talon roll from the Fang with the focus token. Opportunity to put damage into the Falcon, where I think a lot of people would have been taking a turn off, a turn to reset. Get that shot from Han into the Falcon first. And a bit of a blank out there from Han, down to 1 health. Bit of an unfortunate amount of damage to take, given that obstruction. But here we have the old Terok shot. Can he make up for it? Looks like he can. Hit, crit. Range 2. No evades. And that is Han down to 4 health, and with another crit on board. And so even though Scum Han is looking like he may well die next turn, it's at this point with 1 ion token on Resistance Han looking very, very difficult for him to kill Old Terok and the TIE Fighter without taking a further 4 damage. Faan, how much is the impending ionization playing into your planning here? Are you looking to sort of get another shot this turn, or is it all about playing for 2 turns time when Han's going to be drifting forwards?
Yeah, well, I think in generally it would have been a better plan to take more account of this ionization. I think in the game now I tried more to put damage on this turn. But in generally you should try to make use as much as possible of these disabled power regulators in endgame scenarios like this. Might have been not the optimal play for me here to what I did here, I think, because in the end I didn't really profit from the iron. Bartosz also did a good job of picking moves to prevent me from getting a lot of value from it.
Yeah, thing one, obviously, don't be pointing at the board edge when it goes off, but to be a bit cleverer than that, especially if you're going to bring this back.
The problem was that that structural damage that was kind of nailed to the coffin for me. I feel like, yes, Falcons do not have that much green dice, but it's always a green die.
Yeah, absolutely, and it could make all the difference. And this is where Faan, I agree with you. I think you maybe try and get a little bit too clever.
Yeah.
Turning the Fang away, we see here in a moment the barrel in for what is a good blocking position, but obviously not confident enough to not take the focus. And being stressed means that next turn, if Bartosz comes towards you and you get the bump, as we see here,
Yeah.
I don't see how you get the shot on. But we do get the bump from this turn, and that gives Scumhan a nice shot. Might be his final of the game, we'll see. But range 2 obstructed. You've done a really nice job all game, I think, of getting those obstructed shots from Han, all off this central rock. And hit crit, not terrible, could be slightly better. And no agility here from Han, who doesn't get the obstruction from the rock and has structural damage. So takes the hit crit, 2 health left. Not looking good. Certainly needs to kill Han here if he has any chance of staying in the game. And we'll see whether he gets the opportunity to. 3 dice coming in. It's going to be into 3 agility. Still a focus on Scum Han. Oh, and a nice natural 3 hits there. We need all paint from Scum Han to live. And he does not get it. So, final couple turns of the game coming up. We've got an ionized resistance Han Solo with 2 health left, structural damage, blinded pilot, versus a full health Old Terok and a full health Mining Guild Surveyor. But importantly, Old Terok cannot get a shot on him next turn. Points wise, though, I think I'm right in saying that you need to kill Old Terok. The Mining Guild is not going to be enough.
Yeah, killing Old Terok would bring me at 4 points advantage. That would be 166.
And whilst Faan can't get a shot on you this turn, he is very unlikely to give you a shot on him. So it looks like we're looking to go into the final turn, try and get a shot onto Old Terok and just cross your fingers. See what happens. So over the course of the game, Faan, this list was taken to tournament. What's your kind of impression of it? What do you think that the list builder did right? What are areas that they could have improved
on? I think in general, not too bad of a list actually. All the pieces are good, except Han Solo. I feel that it's kind of a weird ship in this list because Old Terok and Torani Kulda, they are more like jousters with aggressive abilities. And I don't know if the playstyle of Han Solo really matches up with those other ships. So maybe it's sometimes also good to have like a completely other thing in your list, but normally these scum lists with different ships are more built with all aggressive abilities. Old Terok, Torani Kulda, a couple of more of these other ships. So I felt that Han Solo was maybe a bit of a weird one. But I think this game shows that if you get the obstructions, then he can really generate some value over the course of the game.
Resistance Han here with a shot onto the TIE Fighter, barreled into range, maybe taking a little bit of risk. Hit crit there. Could have got some damage through, but 2 evades from that Mining Guild. And then has an opportunity, and I wonder, is he going to do the job? Another crit. And another crit goes through. Wow, this TIE fighter has been incredible for 29 points. Direct hit would kill, but not the direct hit. And Han lives to fight another day.
Yeah, but this is where I was wondering why Faan did that 1 heart to bump me there.
This was a bit of a silly move, I have to admit. There was some plan in my head that obviously completely failed. But my idea was maybe that the 1 heart, by sometimes you have these weird things where a ship bumps to the side and then it doesn't get forward at all. And I was hoping to get some sort of scenario where Volterok wouldn't move, Han Solo would just do a 1 forward in front of me. And he had blinded, so he probably wouldn't kill Old Terror, and then Old Terror could just finish him using structural damage. But obviously, this was Old Terror just moved and you bumped me, so it was, and I was still stressed, so I couldn't even make a K-turn or anything. So it was not a great plan, but I thought the idea was maybe a bit too fancy.
Yeah, I get the idea, Faan, of trying to not move at all. And I can kind of understand the thought process, but it didn't come off. But actually, given your position, you're going to be able to get a decent distance away from Han, and we can see here the 2 bank away, take the focus. Han goes towards the TIE fighter, has a choice to try and rotate the arc and have an unmodified do 4 damage into a focused Terok, and actually decides to boost and take a range 1 shot into the TIE fighter. Rolls 1 hit. TIE fighter rolling 2 focuses, but keeping the focus for offense, and takes his range 1 shot. 2 hits, doesn't even need to spend that focus. That's the final damage into the structurally damaged Han, and the end of the game. So we've spoken to the guys a fair bit during the game about their lists and what they thought of them. Lloyd, why don't we start with you? What are your thoughts on the game and on the list that we saw here?
So there were a couple of things I took away, and obviously a lot of it is list related. As we suspected, right, we had 2 world-class players coming in and getting the most out of their lists. So I think it was really interesting to see what 2 lists that are mediocre or have done badly can do in expert hands. So I think that was definitely interesting and eye-opening and hopefully educational. One thing I did take away, and we didn't really mention it, but we've spoken a lot throughout the last year of kind of people playing online and having to know the difficulty of measuring things and maneuvers and ranges and things online. And I mean, Faan has obviously had an incredible season online. And just watching Faan play and the confidence he has with knowing exactly where a maneuver is going to turn up. And obviously Bartosz also true, but more examples in this game. If you watch this game again and you just watch the tiny little mustache rock at the very bottom center of the table, there are 2 or 3 times that Faan skirts by it by tiny, tiny margins. But because he very clearly knows exactly where his maneuvers are going to end up every time, it gives him more choices. So I think the lesson for people watching this is, and it sounds like a stupid thing, but know exactly how big your maneuver templates are and where they're going to end you. Because once you have that with complete confidence, it gives you so much more space to play in.
Yeah, absolutely. Practice makes perfect. Faan, just before we describe the final couple of turns of the game there, we're talking about Han, and I agree with you. My experience has been that either you don't put any upgrades on him and he doesn't do anything, or you put a load of upgrades on him, he does some damage, but nowhere near enough to pay back the points. And I think he is a ship that feels like it should be better than it is. But having said that, I think that you got more out of him than I have seen most players do. I think we've covered the lists from both you and Bartosz have said some really interesting stuff about your respective lists. Faan, starting with you, did you enjoy the game? Anything to sort of learn from it, take away from it, and any bits of the list that you can consider using in future builds?
Well, I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was funny to see some abilities on the table that we normally don't see. So, 2 things. I think you can do really nice tricks with these coordinates, long range or just normal coordinates on these big base falcons, as these boosts from Bartosz showed you. And I might try to put Han Solo once more on the table, because I think if you can consistently get those obstructed shots, it's not that bad of a ship actually. But the whole trick is getting those shots consistently.
I have to agree. The only thing I think I would change in that list is I'm not sure Terach is worth. I think normal Fang would do the job there as well. And maybe changing Tyranny to, and he would combo with Han Solo, is advanced sense of Forlom.
Yeah, I'm fully endorse that. I think that we've kind of forgotten about Forlom. Very popular at the beginning of the second edition, but I haven't seen him a lot recently. And yeah, I think there's definitely still a place for him in the meta. Bartosz, final thought?
I really enjoyed that game. I have to say it was really fun. I'm always a last-minute decision man. Like before the tournament, my friend is asking, "What are you flying tomorrow?" I have no idea. I still have 32 minutes to decide, and then I flip a coin at the end. And being forced into a list doesn't give you that opportunity to whine or change anything. But also, this list showed the old truth that efficiency, more dice, is better than doing fancy things. And like I mentioned, I'm flying Anakin in new ETA 2, and he's amazing. He does all the tricks and then you blank out and you die. But you're facing all those 12 HP ships, and you're putting all those crits, and you're like, yeah, and then one blank out, he's winning, and you're like, oh, great.
So efficiency remains king.
You can see that in the meta. I mean, if you look at what Paul Heaver has always been flying, because he's like a benchmark for me, always the most efficient lists win at the end.
And that seems like a good note to end it on. Before we say goodbye, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Can I do advertisements as well?
Yeah,
Of course.
you can, man.
Right, so guys, as you know, I'm doing a stream, Polska X-Wing, mid of January. Look out for advertisements, because I'm starting 1 or 2 days per week in English only for all of you guys. I know there's a niche that we're missing, sort of a Gold Squadron podcast kind of thing in English in Europe, so I'll try to fill that gap.
Sounds really good. Look forward to it.
We also have recently a nice stream, I think, on Twitch, the Amsterdam Squadron Twitch, where we most Thursdays we stream now games from a league that we run in the Netherlands, actually, and we also have some other videos on there with all commentary by good players. I think.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the few good things to have come out of everything that's happened in the last year is the explosion in the number of X-Wing streams, and both your guys in Amsterdam and Bartosz's Polish stream are both excellent. I've watched them myself, and I'd highly recommend them. So I think all that's left for me to say is thank you ever so much, guys, for coming on. We were really excited to have you on. You didn't let us down. Excellent game, an excellent insight on the commentary. I'm sure everyone at home enjoyed it, and if you did, there's more where that came from. Tune in again in 2 weeks' time when we have 2 players you may have heard of as well, Timo versus Nicholas God-Nielsen in another Bad Batch. Thanks very much.
Never heard of those guys.
Who are those guys?